The Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra is here. It's the best that we have from Samsung. How does it compare to the best from Apple, the iPhone 17 Pro Max? Well, let's put these head-to-head SuperSaf style and find out. Now, initially taking a look at the design, I think both devices look really good. The iPhone does have more of a glow up compared to the iPhone 16 Pro Max from the previous year. The S26 Ultra, although it does have some design updates such as this ambient island and the more curved edges, it still does look very similar to the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. And honestly speaking, if you have the S25 Ultra and the S26 Ultra in a case, it's hard to tell them apart. However, we do have many more color options on the S26 Ultra compared to the iPhone 17 Pro Max. The iPhone 17 Pro Max comes in just 3 colors: this cosmic orange, a deep blue, as well as a silver. The S26 Ultra comes in 4 different default colors: this cobalt violet, which I really like, there's a sky blue, a black, as well as a white, but there are 2 online exclusive colors, a pink gold, as well as a silver shadow. Now, if you're interested in picking one of these up, then do check out my exclusive affiliate links down in the description below. In the US, you can get up to $930 in trade-in credit or $180 in instant Samsung credit without a trade-in, and $30 of that is exclusive with my link. And in the UK, you can get double the storage as well as 5% off using my special code. Those will be down in the description. Now, for the build materials, we have a combination of glass and aluminium. Yes, Samsung have also now opted to go back to aluminium after Apple did. Now, it's quite funny how both of the brands were talking about how much better titanium is, but they've both gone back to aluminium. The iPhone has more of a unibody design, so this glass section here is not as exposed as the glass here on the S26 Ultra. I'm personally not going to be dropping either of these, so you can wait for some of those other videos. And they're both roughly about the same size. However, the S26 Ultra is slightly thinner and it's also lighter. However, I would still say that the iPhone is slightly more comfortable to hold because of its contoured edges. The S26 Ultra, the corners are now a lot more rounded, which does help, but the edges are still quite sharp at the back. Both devices have an IP68 water and dust resistant rating, although you can submerge the iPhone deeper into water compared to the S26 Ultra. I always say this, but I am not planning to take either of these swimming, so it's not going to be a huge deal to me, but it might be to you. Now, one thing that may or may not matter to you is that the iPhone doesn't rock as much on the table as the Samsung does. Now let's take a look at the displays, because we have some amazing displays on both devices, both around 6.9 inches with OLED technology. Both have adaptive refresh rates, so they're very smooth. They go from 1 to 120 Hz. The S26 Ultra does have a high resolution, so it's a tad sharper, but the iPhone 17 Pro Max can get a little bit brighter. Now, the S26 Ultra has some features which really make it stand out, and in my opinion, make this the absolute best display on any smartphone out there right now. The first thing we've seen before is that this uses Gorilla Armor 2, and that gives it anti-reflective properties. And although the iPhone does have anti-reflective coating, it's not as good as what we've got with Gorilla Armor 2. And then we've got a brand new feature on the S26 Ultra, which is the world's first, and that is privacy display. Now, this can essentially do what a privacy screen protector could do by limiting the angle of view, but because this is on a pixel level, you can switch it on and off. The way this works is by switching off the wider pixels and keeping the narrower pixels on. And in my experience, this works really well. You can have it on for just specific apps. So for instance, if it's something like your banking app or your messages that you don't really want people to be snooping on, you can have it active for just those. You can have it activated when you're entering passwords and PIN codes. And you can even have it active just for your notification pop-ups. Now, switching privacy display on does reduce the brightness and resolution slightly, and that is understandable because it's switching off the wider pixels. However, because you don't have to have this on all the time, I don't think it's a big deal. Personally, I've just been keeping it on for notifications because it's just applied to that particular area and just for specific security apps, which I don't want people snooping on. We also get a better screen to body ratio on the S26 Ultra because we just have a small punch out. On the iPhone 17 Pro Max, we have the dynamic island. Now, the reason we have the dynamic island is because we do have Face ID. Now, this is secure facial unlock. And although you can use facial unlock on the S26 Ultra, this is simply not the same because that's just going to be using the front-facing camera. It doesn't have additional sensors like the iPhone 17 Pro Max has. So for any wise asses in the comments, you can simply just go into the settings of the S26 Ultra and it will tell you itself that it's not as secure. But the S26 Ultra does have the Qualcomm 3D Sonic sensor. This is amazing, works really well. It's one of my favorites. Now, which one is better, Face ID or an ultrasonic fingerprint scanner? This is going to come down to your personal preference. If you ask me, I always prefer a fingerprint scanner. It just makes things easier. I use my phone a lot in bed, and I've said this many times before, but with the iPhone, half the time it can't recognize my face because my face is halfway in my pillow, and I don't really want to have to get out and kind of point it at my face. It's just not convenient. Whereas with a fingerprint scanner, I never have this problem. Now, of course, the best solution would be to have both, and we do have that on other devices like the Honor Magic 8 Pro, which I really do like. Now let's talk about the cameras. Hey man, you want to remind them to subscribe and whatnot? You heard the man. Yeah. If you haven't already, do consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon if you want to see more content like this. Right, cameras. I have done a detailed SuperSaf style camera comparison between both devices, and that's around 15 minutes long. I've gone through every detail possible. So definitely do check that out. But to give you an overview, both have really good selfie cameras. However, on the iPhone 17 Pro Max, you do have a center stage selfie camera. This uses a square sensor, and it means that you can take both landscape and portrait images without having to rotate your phone. I really do like this. The iPhone has a triple 48 megapixel rear-facing camera setup with a primary, an ultra-wide, as well as a 4x telephoto camera. The S26 Ultra has a quad rear-facing camera setup with a 50 megapixel ultra-wide, a 200 megapixel primary, and then two telephoto cameras, one at 10 megapixels 3 times, and the other at 50 megapixels 5 times. Now, generally speaking, you can't go wrong with either of these. They both take excellent images and video. I'd say overall in my testing, the iPhone is better in low light, especially from the primary and telephoto camera. We've also got photographic styles, which work really well. They allow you to really customize the look of your images after you've taken them. And I really do like that selfie camera with center stage. On the Samsung, you have that dedicated 3x telephoto camera. You've got better extended zoom in good light. I would also say that it's got a better ultra-wide camera. You've got the ability to shoot 8K video from 3 of the lenses, the ultra-wide, the primary, as well as the telephoto camera. And it's also got better overall stabilization with a brand new feature called horizontal lock. Now, this is pretty insane how it works. You must have seen lots of people kind of rotating the camera a full 360, and you're still seeing a straight frame. So if you're somebody that doesn't have steady hands, or you know somebody that doesn't have steady hands and you hand the camera over to them, at least you can be sure that the frame is going to be pretty still, almost like it's on a tripod. It's very, very impressive. Both devices can also shoot in log, which means that you can get a flat picture profile that you can color grade later. Now, once again, if you want to see a detailed breakdown of all of the camera features, then check out my camera comparison. Now let's talk about the performance. So on the iPhone 17 Pro Max, we have the A19 Pro, which is a 3nm chipset. On the S26 Ultra, we have the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 for Galaxy, which is also a 3nm chipset. The iPhone, for the first time, has a new vapor chamber, and this can give you up to 40% higher sustained performance compared to the iPhone 16 Pro Max. The S26 Ultra also has an expanded vapor chamber compared to last year with thermal interface material, and this can dissipate over 21% more heat. Now, for benchmarks, the iPhone 17 Pro Max scores slightly higher for the single core performance, but for the multi-core performance, the S26 Ultra scores quite a bit higher. Now, in your day-to-day, this is going to mean that both of these have exceptional performance, and you really can't go wrong with either of these. They've been able to handle everything that I've thrown at them. One advantage that you do get on the iPhone 17 Pro Max is that you have console-level games that you can download directly from the Apple App Store. With the S26 Ultra, yes, you can get PC games via emulators, which need to be optimized, but you're not going to get the same level of convenience that you have with the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Now, I personally am not a gamer by any means, but my friend Thunder E from Board at Work is. If you want to see his detailed gaming test of the S26 Ultra, I'll leave that link down in the description below. We've got 12 gigabytes of RAM as a base on both devices. However, if you buy the 1TB version of the S26 Ultra, you will get 16 gigabytes of RAM. And in my experience, I have found that the S26 Ultra does a better job of keeping things running in the background. Let me explain. So the iPhone is pretty aggressive at putting things to sleep in the background. An example I can give you is if I'm uploading a reel on Instagram, Instagram will actually tell me on the iPhone that keep Instagram open to finish uploading the reel, otherwise it may or may not finish uploading. On the Samsung, I've never had this issue. I can just leave things uploading in the background and not have to worry about it. Now, of course, a lot of that does come to the software and optimization, and we do have two completely different operating systems on both devices. On the iPhone, we have iOS 26.3 at the time of this video. The S26 Ultra comes with Android 16 and One UI 8.5 out of the box. Now, Samsung have promised 7 generations of Android OS updates and security updates. With the iPhone, we don't have a specific number of years that they're going to be supporting this, but Apple have been known to support their devices for a very long time as well. Now, in terms of my personal opinion, I think both operating systems are good in their own ways, and you really can't go wrong with either of these. I think it's come to a point where they are pretty much neck and neck. I would still say, however, that Android has more customization. You can see that I can lay things out just the way I want here. On the iPhone, although now I can move icons towards the bottom, which is finally amazing, there is still lots of space. Why can I not have 5 columns and utilize this massive display? I can do that here on the Samsung. However, I do find that many apps are more optimized for iOS compared to Android, and lots of new features in apps come on iPhone before they do on Samsung devices. One thing I noticed recently, for example, is when I was in TikTok, I can press and hold to speed up videos, and on the iPhone, I can then just pull down and it's gonna lock that speed. I still can't do this on Android for some reason. Now, I'm sure it's gonna come a little bit later, but that's just one example of many features that come to Apple before they do on Samsung. But then when it comes to AI, this is where I think it's a clear win for the Samsung, because we've got Galaxy AI alongside Gemini versus Apple Intelligence. And Apple Intelligence, as we all know, has had its struggles. I always use this example in my videos, and I'm gonna do it again because it still hasn't changed. Give me the top 5 halal restaurants in Leicester.
Which one?
So, firstly, it only gave me 3, and many of these are not actually restaurants, they're takeaways. Now, yes, I could use ChatGPT to get more detailed results, but then why do I need to do that? Why can't this just know that it can't give me the top 5 and just use ChatGPT itself? Now, let's try this on the S26 Ultra. Give me the top 5 halal restaurants in Leicester.
Leicester offers a fantastic variety of high-quality halal dining options, ranging from fresh seafood to authentic turkey. Shrimp and Co. Leicester.
Okay, I'm gonna stop this right now, but you saw that it not only gave me the top 5, which are all good restaurants, but it actually gave me breakdowns of them all as well. Now, we also have Bixby on the S26 Ultra, and there's also integration of Perplexity. And when it comes to AI image editing, again, it's night and day. Cleanup on the iPhone can work for some basic things, but as soon as there's something a bit more complex, it just absolutely fails. On the Samsung, although it needs an internet connection, it does an amazing job, and you can do so much more. You can now also use prompts. So for instance, if I want to turn my black jacket into white, it can do this and give me some very convincing results. And there are so many more useful AI features on the S26 Ultra that I found compared to the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Now, having said that, we have heard that Apple will be partnering with Google to improve the AI, and I'm sure it's going to be doing much better later on. But at this point in time, when it comes to AI, Samsung wins, hands down. Now let's talk about some of the bonus features that we have on both devices. So we have 2 additional buttons on the iPhone 17 Pro Max. There's the camera control button, which honestly speaking, I don't use much. It is useful as a shutter sometimes, but generally I don't. You might like it. One button that is very useful is the action button, and you can customize this pretty deep. Now on the Samsung, yes, you do have the power button, which you can customize somewhat, and also further using the Good Luck app, but it's not a dedicated separate button like we have on the iPhone. The iPhone also has emergency SOS via satellite, as well as roadside assistance via satellite. Now, apparently the S26 Ultra on certain carriers may also have this or may not, but it's not the same as what we've got on the iPhone. The iPhone also has crash detection and a dedicated LiDAR scanner. The S26 Ultra has something which the iPhone has never had and probably will never get, and that is the S Pen. Now, this can be super useful for doodling or signing documents and things like that. Yes, it doesn't have Bluetooth like we didn't have on the S25 Ultra, so you can't use it as, say, a remote trigger or anything like that. But nevertheless, this is a very useful feature. We also have Samsung DeX on the S26 Ultra, and this is going to allow you to connect wirelessly to a display and have a desktop level experience. Yes, on the iPhone, you can use AirPlay, but it's simply not the same as the desktop level experience that you get with Samsung DeX. Now for the speakers, both of these have stereo speakers and both sound really good to me. I am no audiophile, before, but my buddy Thunder E from Ultrawide has also done a detailed speaker test of the S26 Ultra and compared it to many other devices. In his opinion, the iPhone 17 Pro Max does give you more rich sound, but once again, check out his video for a detailed review. Now, speaking of some of the other features, we've of course got USB Type-C ports on both devices. The iPhone, however, does come with a nicer braided cable out of the box compared to the standard cable that comes out from the S26 Ultra box. And with the S26 Ultra, you do have a physical SIM card tray, but it does also support an eSIM card. In certain regions, like here in the UK, you will have a dual SIM card slot too. On the iPhone, although in the UK, we do have a physical SIM card tray with an eSIM, in the US, you have eSIM only. Now, one of the advantages of the US version of the iPhone 17 Pro Max having eSIM only is that version does have a slightly larger battery. The S26 Ultra still has a 5000 mAh battery, so this has not changed. So we have roughly the same size batteries on both devices. Now, what about battery life? Well, honestly speaking, both of these are very similar in terms of battery life. They're both good, but they're not amazing. They definitely don't match up to the competition like we've got on something like the OnePlus 15. The S26 Ultra, however, does support faster wide charging, 60 watts versus 40 watts. And they both do support up to 25 watts of wireless charging. Now, on the iPhone, it does have magnets built in, so you can use this with MagSafe straight away. With the S26 Ultra, although it does support Qi 2.2 charging, unfortunately, the magnets are not built in. So if you do want to use Qi 2.2, then you will have to have a compatible case. Now, Samsung say this is because most of their users, the vast majority, like 99%, use their devices with cases. So instead of increasing the weight of the device with magnets, they've just relied on cases to be able to do that for you, which I guess is fair enough, but still, these are built in on the iPhone. They're not here on the S26 Ultra, so that's an advantage that the iPhone has. The S26 Ultra also has wireless power share, so you can charge things on the back of the device. You can charge other devices via the USB Type-C cable on the iPhone, but this is just not the same. And chargers are not included with either of these devices. They haven't been for many, many years, but I always still get comments saying, oh, there's no charger in the box. Well, it hasn't been for like the last 4 or 5 years. Now for pricing. So the S26 Ultra is priced higher compared to the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Around $100 for the base model in the US. The 1TB version is actually $200 more. And in the UK, we're looking at between 80 to 150 pounds more depending on the storage variant. Now, having said that, Samsung does currently have some pre-order deals, which you can check out using my exclusive affiliate links down in the description below. In the UK, you will get double the storage as well as around 5% off with my code. And in the US, although you don't get the double storage offer, you can get up to $930 when you trade in an eligible device. Or if you don't want to trade in, you can still get up to $180 of instant Samsung credit. $30 of that are exclusive with my link. So that is the Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra versus the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Honestly speaking, both of these are excellent devices, and I'm going to carry on using both of these. With the iPhone, you get console level games straight out of the box. You've got a great all-round camera package. You've got built-in MagSafe, and it is priced lower. With the S26 Ultra, you've got a better display. I would say it's the best display on any smartphone. You've got excellent all-round cameras, but you do get that additional 3x zoom camera, as well as 8K video. And you've got, I would say, the most complete AI package on any smartphone. That's what I think anyway. What do you guys think? Drop me a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. If you want to see more videos like this, then be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon. I've already done the camera comparison that I mentioned. That's going to be linked here. And if you want to see what the S26 and the S26 Plus are like, that video will also be linked here. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, then do smash that like button for me. Thanks for watching. This is Saf on SuperSaf TV, and I'll see you next time.